Communication and significance of communication in the context of any organization we are going to discuss. So communication is a part of administrative behavior, and administrative behavior is that specific component of human behavior in general which is of consequence to administration. As a student of public administration and governance law, you are not supposed to deal with entire human behavior. You are not supposed to study the full scope of human behavior. That will be the case of psychology or something, some other sciences, behavioral sciences. As a student of public administration, you are mainly concerned with that specific component of human behavior which is of consequence to administration, which affects administration, which affects the social environment, or in fact constitute the social environment of any organization. So administrative behavior consists of morale, motivation, communication, leadership and decision making. And all these components and attributes of administrative behavior, they are interdependent, interrelated, and in togetherness they constitute a self-sustaining cyclical process. I mean to say that you cannot think of communication without decision making. You cannot think of decision making without communication. You cannot think of elevating the level of morale and motivation without communication. You cannot think of leadership without communication, and you cannot think of communication, a good communication, without leadership qualities. So communication, leadership, morale, motivation, all put together constitute a cyclical process wherein it is difficult to identify a point of origin and point of destination. You can begin from anywhere. You can say decision making is more important than communication. Then somebody would say, no, communication is more important than decision making. Why? Because without communication, decision cannot take place. And without decision making, again somebody would say, without decision making, without decision, communication process cannot be initiated. So communication precedes decision making, or decision making precedes communication. There can be a lot of debate and discussion on this. So actually all these components of administrative behavior, they in a complex interplay constitute what we call administrative behavior. In fact, if your level of morale and motivation is low, then it will have implications for your communication. Your communication will reflect the low level of morale and motivation. And through powerful communication, you can elevate the level of morale and motivation. A leader is not a leader if he is not good in communication. It means he is not capable of influencing the mind of his followers through powerful communication. So leadership cannot be, you cannot think of leadership without communication, and you cannot think of good communication without leadership skills. So all such attributes are interdependent, interrelated. So best way to deal with all these attributes of administrative behavior is whenever you are asked question on communication, keep the communication in the center and all other attributes around it. If the question is on decision making, then you should keep decision making in the center and then communication, leadership, morale, motivation around it. In this way, you can always deal with the full scope of that subject matter, full scope of the question. Now suppose you have to deal with communication. So communication in the center, then leadership, decision making, morale, motivation and creativity around it. And in togetherness, they constitute a cyclical process. If I simply replace communication by decision making, then decision making will be in the center and the communication will be here. So you need to understand the interplay of all these attributes of administrative behavior. So before we begin, first of all, we need to understand that communication is a dynamic process. Communication is a dynamic process. It is not just about sharing some ideas, some views, opinion, or sharing meaning of something. Communication is a dynamic process which involves various aspects of your personality. When you communicate, you share your ideas, any piece of information with other person. You are not just sharing information. When you communicate with others, you reflect your ego state. When you communicate with others, you reflect your mental, emotional state of being. When you communicate, you reflect your IQ, your SQs, your social quotient, emotional quotient, your IQ, lot many things are reflected. Then when you communicate with somebody, you reflect your ethical choices, your ethical and moral standard. These are also reflect what kind of words you choose, what is your body language. Lot many things are there in communication. And communication is not only about what you speak and what you write. Silence is also the expression of communication. In a given context, in a given context, sometimes your silence can be interpreted into affirmation of something, or your silence can also reflect that you hold reservation over something. It can be interpreted positively, or it can be interpreted negatively. So communication is a dynamic process. It is much more than just sharing of information, sharing of ideas, views and opinion. Apparently it appears like that. Communication process involves that there is some kind of communication invariably involves few things without which communication will not take place. What are those components? That there is a piece of thought, you have some information, a piece of information, anything that you want to share. Having information is not enough. That information must be accompanied by willingness to share it with somebody. And once you have, a piece of information or thought, and you have willingness to share it, then the next thing which is required is to encapsulate that piece of information in terms of words and symbols. What I mean to say, it is codification, the coding. So you have a piece of information. After that, you have willingness to share such information with others. You go for codification. You go codification of that information. You make use of appropriate words and symbols or body language if required. After that, transmission takes place, and once the transmission takes place from your side, it's gone to the other side, the receiver. You are the sender, then receiver. Then there is a next stage. There will be a reception of that information, physical reception. After that, there will be decoding of such information. The person who receives your communication will decode it, and after decoding there is understanding. So when you decode, here you make use of the words and symbols. On the other hand, the receiver of your communication, he decodes it. He is required to decode such information. So he unravels and he identifies, or identifies the meaning of different words and the symbols. And there should be mutuality of understanding. You are making use of those words and symbols which are not intelligible to the person on the other side, then communication can fail. So communication process is a complex process. One more thing, when you decode such words and symbols, mutuality of meaning, there is a principle of mutuality of meaning. You are making use of those words and symbols which are known to each other. It means the meaning that the receiver is going to draw from the word and symbol is similar to the meaning that you know. So there is no confusion regarding that. And finally, the understanding. After communication, what you understand. Once you receive, you decode such words and symbols. What you understand, it depends on your knowledge of the words and the letters. That is one thing. Psychological aspect is equally important. What kind of psychological or mental or emotional state of being you are in. So your emotional state of being, your mental state of being, to a great extent determine what you're going to elicit from such words and symbols, what you're going to understand. So understanding has a psychological or emotional aspect to it. And if the receiver has finally understood the message the way the sender wanted him or her to understand, then only communication becomes complete. So communication is a dynamic process. I repeat, it is not just about sharing information. It is not just about expressing your views and opinion. Communication involves your ethical choices. Communication reflects your ego state. Communication reflects your mental state of being. Communication also reflects your level of IQ or EQ or SQ. Communication reflects your creativity sometimes. The communication may be integrative or it may be disintegrative. You are making use of words or sentences, your expressions are such that you make you integrate with people easily. You bring them, you easily get associated with them. And sometimes your communication may be disintegrative communication. Disintegrative, your tendency is to divide, tendency to disassociate yourself from others. So there can be different ways of communication. It is not just about sharing of information, ideas, views and opinion. So communication is a dynamic process. Now what is the link? The communication and leadership. Can you think of leadership without communication? Leadership is basically all about influencing. Leadership is an influencing process. You influence the mind of your followers and you prepare them to get those things done which you want them to do. So leadership is basically an influencing process, and it is through powerful communication that the good leaders, powerful communication that leaders influence your mind. If there is any kind of intrapersonal disagreement, if there are two disassociated things, so in that case, that integration is achieved through communication. So communication holds the key. Leadership holds the leader. Good leader can. If there is a disassociation, good leader can bring that unity inside you. That if you're in confusion, what to do and what not to do, a leader by his powerful communication can bring such integration and can prepare you for the goal accomplishment. Unity of direction and purpose can be achieved by leaders through communication. So leadership and communication, then decision making and leaders have decision making and communication. There's a direct link. There cannot be decision making without communication. Okay, first of all, it is communication. It is through the process of communication that you collect intelligence, you collect relevant data and information. On the basis of such information base, you take some decision. It means quality of your decision, nature of your decision, among several other things, depends heavily on efficiency of communication system. It means you are a very good decision maker. Getting a point? You can take decision very well. You're a good decision maker. But if your communication system is not efficient, communication system is not very much efficient and effective, it is not scientifically well designed, it is not organized properly, then by the time you get information, there is a possibility that you get information very late or you get half-baked information. So quality of information based on communication system will have direct implications on your decision making, quality of your decision. So decision making among several other things depends heavily on the nature and the quality of communication. Very efficient communication, fast communication, timely communication means that you will have relevant input, at appropriate time, and that will facilitate a good decision making. Then you have communication and creativity. There is a direct link between the two. Your inner potential, every person is unique in terms of ability, a potential strength. It may find expression, it may not find expression, but when you find a good painter, a good writer, so creativity finds expression through communication. So when you are writing something, you are painting something, you create something, all such things are nothing but your communication. You communicate with the environment. You imagine things and you choose appropriate words, or you choose the colors and the shades. So there can be different manifestation of that, but communication is the key to creativity. That you collect input, you learn something. On the basis of such input intelligence, you imagine something and you give expression to your imagination through communication. So communication and creativity, there's a direct link between the two. And then morale and motivation. It is through communication that you can diffuse the negativity in a person. It is through communication that you can motivate the person, you can prepare them for the goal accomplishment. You can achieve unity of direction and purpose. So morale and motivation depends not only on communication. There are a lot many things, social incentives, economic incentives, but communication also holds a lot of significance. More particularly in the context of army, if you find the brave generals, there are more than one instances. We have seen the Subhash Chandra Bose, or you talk about, it's not appropriate to compare Subhash Chandra Bose with Hitler and Napoleon. But as far as communication is concerned, it is said that Hitler, he had a very powerful communication. He was capable of preparing people for his mission. Even despite resistance, he was capable of overcoming any kind of resistance through his communication and to prepare his followers for the things that he found appropriate for accomplishment. Even the toughest of the decisions, he was capable of executing the same. So communication and your creative morale and motivation, there is a direct link between the two. Communication, morale and motivation, communication and decision making, communication and leadership. Clear? Communication and creativity. And communication is essential for the exercise of authority. You may be in position of authority, you may be a very powerful person, but unless there is communication, unless you have some input or information through a communication system, if you don't have any intelligence, you don't have any information, then how will you exercise authority? So ability of the leaders to exercise their authority, to influence the course of events, that's taking place, to influence the course of events, or to influence others to do or not to do certain things. So the ability to exercise authority, to control, to regulate, to prepare somebody or a group of persons to do or not to do certain things, it depends heavily on communication. You have no idea. If communication system is not efficient, you have no intelligence, you don't have any input, then you won't be able to exercise your authority. And without information, without intelligence, if you exercise authority, if you issue any kind of order and command to get the things done, so because of without intelligence, without information, your orders and command will fail to accomplish the desired goals. So communication is you are bound to fail in the exercise of authority meaningfully and to accomplish the goals. So therefore there is a link. One, communication, cooperation and coordination. There is also a direct link, a sequence. Communication is the key to cooperation. How can there be cooperation among two or more persons unless there is communication? It is through communication that they reach some kind of agreement, some kind of consensus, that yes, there is a common goal or purpose to be accomplished. It is through communication that they remove the doubt of one another. It is through communication that they discuss various aspects of that cooperative action, what can be the problems, any kind of inhibitions, and what could be the better way to make collective effort. All such things depend on communication. So communication is the key to cooperation, and cooperation, we know, that is a collective action. Two or more persons voluntarily, they decide to contribute in the collective action to accomplish a common goal, that is cooperation. So without communication, such cooperation is not possible. And when this cooperation is placed in a formal mold of rules or regulations or techniques or methods, getting a point, you bring together in kind of in a rhythm, person to person, department to department, process to process. They are brought together in such a way that they are mutually reinforcing. It means they make collective effort despite having diverse set of rules, regulations, different kind of persons, different departments, but they are brought together in a process in such a way that they are mutually reinforcing, that you finally accomplish the goals and purpose by making collective effort with list of friction and avoidance of duplication of effort, highest level of efficiency, that is known as coordination. So you have communication leads to cooperation, and then cooperation, when it's placed in a formal mold, that becomes coordination. And coordination is the soul of any organization. If you go by the words of Chester Bernard, then organization is nothing but the consciously coordinated activities of two or more persons. Consciously coordinated activities. I mean, coordination has to take place necessarily. Cooperation is essential, but coordination. But that coordination should be the outcome of a deliberate and conscious, the decision or the process. So you have communication. Communication leads to cooperation, and cooperation, when it's placed in a formal mold, that is known as coordination. And this coordination constitute the very core of organization. And organization facilitates a conducive environment for the administration to function and the management to function. Administration is concerned with determination of goals, objectives, and the principles, and management is concerned with making the most efficient and effective utilization of available human and material resources for those goal accomplishments. So management is supposed to get the things done while remaining within the bounds of the principles as set by, or the policies as set by, the administration. So you have organization, man, money, machine, material, all the things are brought together to create an environment within the bounds of which administration management functions. Administration decides the goals and objectives of the policies, the principles, and within the bounds of these policies and principles to accomplish such goal, management at the next level, it functions. It is responsible for making best possible utilization of total available resources to get the things done. Point clear? So I began with communication, the links, then communication, cooperation and coordination. And so through coordination, you can also connect here this organization. Then you take it here, organization It is facilitating administration plus management. Point clear? Sometimes administration management is used interchangeably, but if you have to draw the line of distinction between the two, it is more deterministic in nature. Administration determines the principles and objectives. Okay, basic policy decisions are taken by administration, and within the bounds of that, management has to get the things done. So this is the sequence. You have communication, you have cooperation. Communication leads to cooperation, and cooperation, when placed, is placed in a formal mold of rules, regulation, technique, method, process. It becomes coordination, and this coordination constitutes the very soul of any organization. An organization has a facilitative role. It provides a conducive environment within the bounds of which administration and management functions. Administration is more concerned with determination of things, policy, goals and objectives. Within the bounds of that, management has to function. Management. They have to make the best possible utilization of resources to get the things done. Clear? Okay, fine. Thank you.